Welcome to Hot Takes, where we discuss hot topics about movies and the film industry. We might agree to disagree or find common ground, but our goal is to have fun and conversate. Hi, I'm Armani, the host, and today a special guest will join us to discuss a popular crime movie that will be celebrating its 40th anniversary soon. Before I give any more clues, let's welcome our guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Jordan Fenner. I'm from Hackensack, New Jersey. I'm a filmmaker and a model, and today I'll be joining the conversation.
We'll be discussing a classic American film directed by Brian De Palma, released in 1983. It's a remake of a 1932 film many don't know about, unless you're a geek. Just kidding. I did my research. It is known for an intense, gripping portrayal on the rise and fall of a Cuban immigrant. His ruthlessness and ambitious nature propelled him to become a powerful drug lord, ultimately leading to his downfall, many say. What are your thoughts on this?
At this point, they haven't seen it, they probably just don't know.
What do you mean? It's a classic.
Yeah, but there's, some classics I haven't even seen.
What are you talking about? This is a must watch film.
I agree, it is, but that is, why we're here to talk about it.
You're right. I'm very excited. At least you know what I'm talking about. Don't worry. For those who don't know, I give at least a hint to tell a basic run of the story. Last hint. Many kids like to say this, but they probably don't know what movie they're quoting. Say hello to my little friend.
Scarface, the
Yes,
man with the scar across his
yes,
face.
yes. Undoubtedly one of the most iconic and quotable lines in cinema history.
How do you kids know that phrase?
I don't know. That's a great question. But here's the basic rundown. The movie depicts the story of Tony Montana, a Cuban immigrant who migrated to Miami during the 1980s on the Morel boat lift. The boat lift was initially intended to allow Cuban citizens to visit their families in the United States. However, Fidel Castro used it as an opportunity to send some criminals back to the U.S. through these boats. Among those criminals was Tony Montana, who arrived in the U.S. through this boat. After his arrival in the United States, he was integrated and therefore sent to a refugee camp in Miami with other individuals. Together with his buddy Manny Rivera, they were given a deal to kill a Cuban news reporter in exchange for completing the deal. They obtained their green cards, which allowed them to leave the camp. After leaving the refugee camp, Tony and his friend landed jobs as dishwashers and servers in a small restaurant. Tony felt frustrated because he wants to make progress in life rather than just working as a dishwasher. After a while, two guys who work for the rich guy, later known as Frank, shows up to give him another job to make a drug transfer to earn $500. But for Tony, $500 is pocket money. The guy who offers the job feels insulted, then offers him a job that'll make him $5,000. Tony faces change, and this was where he saw an opportunity to make his American dream big. He gets involved with drug trafficking, works his way up to the criminal hierarchy, and becomes a powerful, feared figure in Miami's drug trade.
Wow, that's a lot of information, but the beginning of his career wasn't all in the criminal underworld. This brings the first topic of the discussion to the American dream, portrayed in the movie. The American dream is frequently portrayed in American movies, some depicting it as a glorification of wealth and status, while others, warning of its dangers. Typically, it represents the pursuit of personal freedom, stability, opportunity, financial wealth, constructing generational wealth, um, or a continuous journey. A good example that portrays this is the movie The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and his son, and The Great Gatsby featuring Leo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire.
The characters and their backgrounds are different, yet there are some similarities.
True. All the characters come from poor, struggling backgrounds. However, how they pursue their American dream ethically changes.
Comparing the movies, Gatsby gained wealth through his bootleg business selling illegal alcohol and his connections to organized criminals, similar to how Tony pursued his wealth. He attains his fortune by selling cocaine while climbing the ladder in deals and learning business from drug lords. They drastically changed their life by earning fast money compared to the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, where Chris Gardner, Will Smith, works hard to become a stockbroker, and builds his wealth ethically, earning an honest living. It is quite remarkable to watch Tony's journey, starting as a poor immigrant, washing dishes, and within a year and a half earning millions, owning a mansion, cars, and marrying his boss's wife, while even having a pet tiger. Arch having achieving such an extravagant lifestyle in a short period of time is unusual for most people.
You forget his office, furnished with gold and marble. Tony was a lavish gangster.
But do you think Quick Money earned his Quick Money loss, analyzing how they ended? And do you think it glorifies the unrealistic dream?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but not all immigrants have the same like American dream experience. All work, they all work hard to achieve success and struggle, but others have more ambition than others. Like, let's say Tony decides not to take the job offer. He could stay being a dishwasher or just, save up his earnings. While being a dishwasher is not a negative thing, however, some individuals seek more. Some struggle to accept starting from a modest position. I want to emphasize the depiction of the American dream in the movie. The movie doesn't only showcase the benefits of having a lot of money and the opportunities that come with it, but instead it sheds light on the darker aspects of this dream. Portraying how some individuals achieve success and how they're influenced by the darkness in America. It's important to keep in mind that Tony already had criminal habits, which is why he chose his path. However, Tony's character helps us understand how individuals who are, in dire needs for money, obviously, are influenced by the easy way, the easy money. They often find it easier, more fulfilling to succeed through unethical means. The movie highlights the battle between the society and the individuals at the time.
I appreciate your perspective, and you bring up an interesting point. It can be difficult to witness people who are similar to have your financial success. Some people may feel trapped in their current position due to the scarcity and for job opportunities, or because of their status. Tony feared this for his mother and wanted to live a more comfortable life, but Mrs. Montana's principle didn't align with Tony's.
That's an interesting point. But there's more stuff we got to discuss in the movie. But we'll be back after a short break from today's PSA.
This pen isn't working again! I feel like I'm having a crisis.
Crisis?
I know I ordered hot coffee and not cold. No one ever listens to me.
Sounds like you have a crisis.
My pen isn't working. The internet in this place is absolutely horrible, so now my computer doesn't work. And to top it off, the coffee that I ordered that I said hot is cold because they gave me ice. Like, I need iced coffee in this weather. Like, honestly, this is ridiculous. I feel like I'm going through a crisis.
Crisis?
I'm gonna have to call you back?
Oh, hey, are you okay?
Have you seen a girl, like, this tall around?
No, should I have?
She's been following me around screaming crisis at me.
Oh, Casey? She's a public relations major. They're working on crisis management this week.
Public relations forms relationships between businesses and the public. A degree in public relations could lead to jobs like media planner, social media manager, marketing assistant, copywriter, and crisis manager.
She does realize that's not how crisis management works, right?
Nope. They didn't get to that part yet.
Great.
We are back. So let's talk about another point in the movie. In his pursuit of working with the big boss and earning real money, Montana meets his boss and mentor, Frank Lopez.
Yes, Frank Lopez is a significant character portrayed by actor Robert Loggia. I'll give you some backstory about Frank Lopez. Wealthy and esteemed drug dealer in Miami, Frank takes Tony and his friend Mandy under his wing, giving them work as like enforcers and hitmen. As the story like unfolds, Tony rises within Frank's organization, eventually leading to a power struggle.
What kind of power struggle was that? Would you say?
It was more so like a fight for the top. You know what I mean? He wants to be the boss, nothing else.
Tony, you would say, or Frank?
No, Tony.
Tony, how did he go by doing that?
Well, I mean, it's a formula usually. He killed him and took his place. It happens all the time in real life and in movies. Tony killed his boss and then took his place and then took his connection to the, I guess, good cocaine.
And do you feel like Tony let that power go to his head at some point?
I mean, of course, it's hard not to. You know, coming from nothing and now having everything like overnight, it's like it went straight to his head. You know, it felt like he attained his fortune by selling cocaine while climbing the ladder in deals and learning business from other drug lords. So like, yeah.
And was there any point in the movie where you think Tony screwed up in a way that led to his downfall?
Yeah, I would say so. He made a bunch of mistakes. For one, he developed his own addiction to said drug, and it's a pretty serious drug. So, could have hurt him big time. It did.
And do you feel like Tony's friend Manny did anything to kind of propel this downfall?
Well, yeah. I mean, he told him not to sleep with his sister, and he did it anyway. He actually married her. Tony killed him. You know what I mean? It was just more of like a snowball effect in terms of just like decision making, and you know, like everything got so serious so fast. You know.
And do you feel like that was the right choice for Tony to kill his friend Manny?
That I'm not really too sure of.
Oh, and of course, who can forget about the blondie, Miss Elvira?
Yes, yes. Also, to keep in mind, Frank Lopez's character represents the older generation of the drug traffickers in Miami. While Tony, you know, he represents like the new wave of ruthless, ambitious criminals, and their conflict is central to the film's plot, ultimately leading to a violent confrontation and Tony's rise to power.
And the new generation takes over, leaves the old generation.
Or killed, like Tony did in the film with poor, you know, Mr. Lopez.
Sadly, yes. But don't jump the gun. So this leads us to the 3 rules Frank gave Tony. 3 rules of advice. Number 1, never underestimate the other guy's greed. Everyone in the drug dealing business is driven by their own greed and self-interest. Trust is limited, and one should always be cautious about others' intentions. Number 2, never get high on your own supply.
Definitely broke that rule. When he got involved with the blonde.
Most important rule of the business, but easily broken if you're easily influenced. Frank advises Tony to not use the drugs he's dealing with because it clouds his judgment and leads to self-destruction. Unfortunately, Tony disregards this advice and becomes addicted to cocaine. I believe this is one of the greatest reasons for his downfall.
It's a great point, which is, you know, our topic for the next conversation. But continue with rule number 3.
Rule number 3, never forget who you are. This is to remind him at the beginning and not to lose sight of who he is and where he came from. But mostly warning against getting too caught up in the criminal lifestyle, not to lose touch with his values and identity.
Yes, he got caught up in his own life and forgot about it to an extent. You know, upon watching the film, I believe Tony's original intention upon like arriving, although never explicitly stated, was to help his family escape poverty. This was like evident when he visited his mother and sister, trying to give them money. But his mom refuses the money because, you know, she knows how he got it. Also, in the same car scene, it was a realization hit him. Tony is given the task of assassinating a journalist. Unexpectedly, the journalist is accompanied by his wife and children. In this scene, Tony faces a moral dilemma. He feels horrible about violent and ruthless decisions he has made up until this point. Despite being pressured to carry out the hit, Tony hesitates and chooses not to kill him. The highlights of this and this internal conflict that develops throughout the film, it just heightens.
Assassinating the journalist scene confronted his values and identity as a person who values his family, and having to blow up a car with a family in it, he's wondering how he got into this mess.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay. So Frank Lopez, he gives him these 3 rules. So my question is, what do you believe led to the downfall of, Scarface?
I have a few reasons why, but we will be back after a short break from today's PSA.
Hey, class starts in 5 minutes. You coming?
Yeah, I'll catch up.
You still here?
Oh yeah, I'm coming to class.
Where are you going? Class ended.
Oh.
If you're so glued to your phone, why don't you minor in social media?
Oh. Okay.
On a daily basis, we're met with many inconveniences, such as road work, traffic, or poorly written laws and regulations.
Well, the solution is you. Yes, you. By visiting the website www.nj.gov/elections, you can find out information regarding the local politicians running in your area. It's up to us as a community to discuss the changes we would like to see happen by voting in our local election November 6th.
Well, first reason why, I believe it was Oliveira which led to his addiction, which led to him making impulsive decisions in his life.
You're taking that route?
Listen, it'll make sense. Tony's biggest mistake was because he was under the influence, clouded his judgment, fueled his paranoia. When he had to be alert and make decisions, how could he if his judgment was clouded, which lead to the many mistakes. One of his mistakes was marrying Blondie. Sorry, but I know some like blondes, but Tony shouldn't have married her. She eats the supply.
Whoa, hold up. I agree Blonde was a bad influence to Tony, but, he never broke rule number 2. He never get high on your own supply. Frank warned him, and Blondie never got in the way of his work. She was doing her own thing, so I disagree that Blondie is any to blame, Who made the addiction worse?
No.
Yes. The man himself, Tony Montana. Tony knew she had an addiction and gave her all she wanted, except, limiting her consumption or putting her in rehab.
But she was addicted before she got to know him. So how are you going to tell the person to stop if you marry them like that?
Yep, yeah. He knew that and he still married her knowing that. I believe she wasn't as bad when she was with Frank. Tony is to blame, not the blonde. The actual reasons that led to his downfall was his betrayal to Frank, fueled by greed and ambition. Frank told him his loyalty to the business was going to help him move up. But Tony is an impulsive and greedy man. He makes a deal with Sosa for $18 million. Tony tells Frank about their new deal. with Sosa after and not before. This breaks trust. Not only that Tony is ruthless and he could do whatever to get a deal done, but he doesn't know Sosa. Sosa's not just a random person. He's the overlord. Frank knew what was going to happen if they couldn't even like bring a third of the money. Tony's being unrealistic when he thinks he can get $1 million there and $1 million there.
That was a funny line. Plus, Frank's face. Oh, a milli here, a milli there. You got it, okay? It actually is a pretty crazy line.
He accepted that crazy deal to profit $78 million. You know, Tony thinks he can move on his own. This is where he falls. Frank is the smart man, Tony's crazy. An operation only in Miami wasn't going to make all that money.
Tony knew that. His plans was to expand.
It's easier said than done. Tony can't think logistics.
But you're forgetting something. They tried to kill Tony. And Tony had suspicion Frank was involved with it. And he was right.
Mistaken. Tony never knew 100%. If it was Frank, when he got accepted, that deal, he made other people mad.
But how can Tony trust his boss after responding to his phone call Tony plan? Tony had a smart idea, planning that out.
But you're forgetting Tony broke the trust first, making the deal without him. Didn't even consult him. Tony's like a black sheep, except, listen to Frank and take his advice. He trusts his own judgment, which was better, talking about ego. He couldn't listen. Frank saw that Tony is crazy, enough to that. Soon he will overtake him once the trust was broken and Frank saw Tony, was going to give up on him one day. He couldn't trust him. Some might disagree, but Frank wasn't going to let a rookie mistake, take commands and see all the consequences of, the operation.
You're calling Antonio Montana a rookie? How dare you? There was no other person in the business like him. Whatever they needed done, he would get done. Why screw him over was the bump scene. As a tough or gangster he was, he had a soul and couldn't kill the family. Don't blame him either. Brutal job. He should have done something to fix it, but the damage was done. I'm not sure what he could have done.
See, this is my main take. Tony is viewed as a tragic figure whose downfall is inevitable. While I view him as a ruthless and unlikable protagonist, hubris and egoist's characteristic contributed to his downfall. He believed that he was invincible and untouchable, which led him to take unnecessary risks and, underestimate his enemies. Frank was an honest, truthful person. If he did break that trust, Tony's crazy and reckless.
I'm not sure how you can view that as the same person. Just kidding. Get your point, but Tony Montana is one of the most memorable characters in cinema, hands down.
Okay, I agree with you.
Overall, what do you rate the movie? After speaking bad about the main character.
I'll rate it an 8. It's a good crime movie.
I rate it a masterpiece. Want to say thanks to all our viewers for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hot Takes.